Hello, writers! I'm creating this video to talk about your reading response text. These are the novels or the collections of short stories that you will be reading and then responding to. And that assignment is due at the end of the semester. First, I wanted to show you where you can find the assignment sheets so that when you want to look this up, you know where to look. If we go into our class under content, it is under assignment descriptions, and then it is reading response. This is the name of the assignment. And here we have the assignment sheet that we went through last class. I did clarify one thing, and that is here at the length of this assignment. This should be 5 pages double-spaced or 2.5 pages single-spaced. Okay, so about 5 pages. Yes, this can be longer if you wish, but that's the minimum that you are aiming for. I wanted to clarify that before people were turning in 5 pages single-spaced, which is what we've been doing so far throughout the rest of the class, turning in things single-spaced. But let's go ahead and talk about the actual texts themselves. As I mentioned in class, I'm not going to talk about why I gave you a certain text, but instead note that the logic is to prompt a response from you. I identified something in your writing, and now I'm assigning you a text to challenge you, or that resonates with what you're doing, or to show you perhaps how another author has handled something similar. So this is not generally organized by genre. So if you turned in sci-fi, this does not mean I sent you a sci-fi novel, although there are some exceptions to that. But these are smaller elements inside of your writing that I am responding to, strategies that I see you using, beyond just the genre conventions that we're talking about this week. Also, note that you do not need to enjoy these pieces. These might challenge you as a writer, as a reader, and that's okay. That's part of the point of this, is to read something that you would not have normally read. And so keep an open mind as you go through your text. It is not about liking something. And I suspect some of you will like your novel or your collection, but others of you might feel differently about it, and that's okay. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you didn't like what I asked you to read, but the idea here is that you do read it and you go into it with an open mind. Feel that you might see something in this text, in your assigned text, that you can learn from. And that, because that is the whole point of this. That is why you're reading and then responding to these different texts. So let's go ahead and work our way through this. As we do, I'm going to give a very brief kind of introduction to the text. And note that if you hear me talking about another text that isn't assigned to you, you should absolutely read that. It's not going to be for this assignment, but maybe this summer you check it out. You are absolutely allowed to say, hey, that sounds really interesting. I want to look at that work. And don't feel that anything not assigned to you is off limits. Okay. Although for the context of this assignment, I want you to focus on the text that I am assigning you. Okay, let's start out with the top here. Alec, you get Watershed by Percival Everett. This is a novel about a reservation and water rights and action. Right? That's it is an action book written by Percival Everett, who we read for genre this week, and it is another Western type narrative, but it's action with a little bit more to it. Some really smart things going on in this one. Plain Song for Anna. Kent Harf is famous for writing about small town America, and I thought that you might see how he handles small town, how he depicts it. Okay, next up we have Ash, Best Small Fictions of 2017. This could be any year. These come out annually, and they're all amazing. I just picked the one I had sitting on my shelf, but you could pick any of them. Small fictions, meaning these are stories that take place over the space of a page, maybe two. Brevity is the name of the game with these, and it's a lot of fun to read flash fiction, shorts, whatever it is you want to call them, because how do you manage that small space? And Ash, congratulations, you get to House of Leaves, Bethany. This one, I laugh because it's like a 500-page book. It might be a little bit longer than that. But Bethany, I do not expect you to have read the whole thing by the end of the semester. That's not the point of this. But hopefully you do read the whole thing as you have time. But I definitely want you to read as much of it as you can. The name of the game for this book is Form. Form. It's a delightful story, a little bit horror-esque, in which a person measures the outside of his house and then measures the inside of his house. And he discovers the outside of his house is something like 1/4 of an inch larger than the inside of his house. And so it's a spatial thing that is then reflected in the form. Chelsea, The Man Who Shot Out My Eye is Dead. This piece, this is a collection of short stories, and they deal with slavery and being black in America, but it's the way that these stories are told that are so absolutely wonderful. There is also some form play in this, some texture, so to speak, some framing devices, but the quality of these stories, the way that they are written, the way that these characters are shown are absolutely magnificent. And so I think you might enjoy this one. Emma, Who Is Changed and Who Is Dead? This book is a novel that seems to have, it takes place in a picturesque English town in the countryside. And it's written in this kind of very light-hearted manner. And then these awful things start happening inside the town. There's a murder spree. And what's going on with that? So there's this delightful conflict between what's being relayed and how it's being told. And so there's your book. Aaron, The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. You might know him. He's a heavy hitter in the fantasy space right now. But this is always the one I suggest to students when you want to learn how to world build. How does he introduce us to this world? It is fascinating to see what he reveals and when he reveals it. And so there's your book. Kalia, you get Sprawl by Daniel Dutton. She went to DU once upon a time, an absolutely amazing writer. Sprawl is about suburbia. It's about suburbia, but the way that she writes about the most boring topic is amazing. It's told through sometimes a voice that uses I, and sometimes through a voice that uses we. So the point of view shifts back and forth, and it's really the details that make up suburbia and how those details are repeated, because every house looks the same. Every house has roughly the same kind of family in it, with the same number of children who have the same objects. And so it's that repetition that this book is exploring. Marin Knightwood. This is one of my favorite books, and I know Sonia has read it before, so if you want to talk to anyone, Sonia would be a good one. There are a couple of other ones that other students in this class might have read in the past, although I can't remember who has read what. But Nightwood is a beautiful, beautiful book. And the language in it is pretty much unparalleled in any other novel I have ever read. And the intro was written by T.S. Eliot. This book is from the 20s. And T.S. Eliot said that this novel will be best appreciated by poets, which I think is the highest praise a novel can get. It's pretty incredible. So you're going to be going through this language that Barnes creates, and but yet there's this narrative inside of it. It's quite amazing. Riley gets threats. Threats. Oh, this is a fairly new book now. But in this book, the narrator's wife has died. But he's not sure why or how or when. But there are threats that keep showing up inside of his house. Little notes, little things that are out of place that set him off. And so as you might guess, this is an unreliable narrator here. And how do you deal with that? How do you actually read through this unreliability to actually see what's going on? Or can you do that? That's a whole other thing. Yeah. Sarah gets Welcome to the Monkey House by Kurt Vonnegut. This is one of Vonnegut's collections of short stories. And there's a whole bunch of different topics here. You have some sci-fi and some romance, a little bit of adventure every now and then. But Vonnegut is one of the best-known American writers of the 20th century. He is absolutely phenomenal, and his language is unadorned, and yet the way that he writes is incredible, the way that he moves a plot along. So I think that you'll enjoy his work, seeing how he goes about writing about all these different things and how he manages a narrative. Sonia, Light in August by William Faulkner. This is another modernist, and this is it's a typhoon of a work that has a bunch of different characters ranging multiple generations. Two characters are named the same thing, even though one is a male who was born earlier and one is a female who was born later. They don't explain that. You suddenly just have this character who has the same name. It's Faulkner. It's absolutely Faulkner. The reason I'm giving you this is not to confuse you, though. It's I'm not going to tell you why, but this book is about a family, and the way that Faulkner writes about this family, the different voices and the different points of view. Benji, who is a famous character from this novel, seeing how he views the world is great, absolutely great. So if you want to see some stream of consciousness type writing, a Light in August. No, actually, you know what? That's the wrong book. That's the wrong book. It's not a Light in August. Oh my goodness! I'm so glad that I'm recording this. It should be The Sound and the Fury. So I will update this list. But Sonia, it's The Sound and the Fury. That's the one you want. Okay, great. And finally, Trevor, you get Scorch Atlas by Blake Butler, which is, they are short pieces, maybe 2, 3, 4 pages long, but each one talks about the end of the world, how the world ends. And this is not in the biblical sense. It's more in a more creative way than that. So perhaps it is static that ends the world, or broken glass, or perhaps things start rotting. Everything starts rotting. Some of these are absolutely disgusting and disturbing, but it's the settings that, how does the world end in each and every time? How do you write the world ending by static? Well, Trevor, you're going to find out. So there you go. There's a brief introduction to your book. Of course, there's more to be said about all of these, and I would be happy to talk to you about these works. If you're having trouble reading them, things that you like, things you don't like, but again, that's not the point of this. What you're gathering from this, that is more of what this is about. The things that you're noticing, the writerly techniques that you are seeing. Finally, let's talk about getting these books. These books are mostly available through the library, and if you want to buy them, they are also usually available through Amazon or through your local bookstore. So keep that in mind. If you can't find your book for whatever reason, let me know.